Parenthood is some journey. I've always felt that age and achievement didn't make me feel older, but having children did. There is something about being responsible for more than yourself that made me feel different, grown up. Welcoming Calliope Elizabeth Ludiker Swarny into our family added a new dimension. She's our first grandchild, a COVID baby who entered this world at a momentous time. My daughter and son-in-law were anxious to have us visit, looking for experienced individuals to help them navigate the challenge of becoming parents. Because of travel and other restrictions related to the pandemic, Calliope was 10 days old when we first got to see her sweet face in person and hold her in our arms. As Manili and I prepared to go, I asked her, what if we've forgotten everything? It's been over 30 years since we took care of a baby. Well, I need not have worried. It seemed as if time melted away as I held Calliope, and I was transported back to holding our newborn daughters. My role in raising our two kids varied. With the first, I was a house husband and primary caregiver. The second time around, the roles reversed, with Manili taking the lead. As the kids grew, our job remained one of support and guidance. Even as they went to college, reached adulthood, got jobs, and moved away, I continued to see them as the kids. Watching my younger daughter through her pregnancy, I was impressed by her acceptance of the changes in her body and the choices she made to promote a healthy pregnancy. Then came labor in a time of medical crisis. Would her husband be able to stay with her? If she showed any signs of infection, would she be isolated from her baby? This on top of the normal worry that most women have about labor and delivery. My view of her began to evolve. Sure, she is still my baby, but she is also a strong, confident woman as well. In the weeks I've been with them since the delivery, that strong, confident woman has solidified. As with any new parent, there are challenges. Learning to read the signals of an infant, managing myriad responsibilities in a sleep-deprived state, and making the transition from a couple to the new dynamics of a triad. But Rowan and Alex stand together, supporting one another as they figure things out. My oldest daughter has been a great support for her sister. She too marveled at the changes occurring in Rowan's body through the pregnancy. After the delivery, she brought her own experiences of being with children to help her sister along. She's helped brainstorm solutions to a few problems along the way. During our visits, she's taken the night shift, staying up with her niece through the night till I relieved her at 4 a.m. She is all in, ready to do whatever her sister or Calliope need. Elizabeth is the older of our two daughters by 6 years, so has moved further in her professional development as a school counselor. I know she has lots of experience with caring for kids through years of babysitting, being a nanny, and helping to care for her friends' children. Still, there's something special in the way she looks at, talks to, and holds her niece. As if it were her own child, it seems to take her outside of herself. I wasn't sure I'd ever be a grandfather. Now, I can say it was worth the wait. Not having full-time responsibility for her allows me to be totally present when I hold her, feed her a bottle of breast milk, or soothe her when she's fussy. With 5 weeks between our first visit and the next, I could readily see the developmental changes as we looked at each other, made faces and noises, see the dawning realization in her little mind that the fist and finger she was mouthing were her own. The denouement, of course, was the smile. It literally melts my heart when she's gazing at me and breaks into that big grin. Having been a parent, you gain the perspective that it all goes by in a flash, and even the most trying times don't last forever. There is so much more to come with Calliope, and I hope to be as much a part of the experience as possible.
You are never ready to become a parent. Parenting is hard. Becoming a parent will change your life. One fine sunny day this winter, I found myself at Bridger Bowl in the base area in my regular clothes and boots. This was one of my very new experiences for me as a new parent, as I was not kitted up and ready to shred as I normally am on the mountain. I was watching our 10-year-old start his snowboard lesson from a proper 10-year-old distance, mind you. I also happened to be standing in a perfect spot to watch all the other parents' children and other shredders walk or slide past me on their way to a lodge or the chairlift. Then I heard it, a child screaming at the top of his lungs. No, 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 no. He said quite a many other things, awful things, in the direction of this person, including that this person was his parent. I won't repeat things this large toddler said, but some of them were downright awful, not to mention the kicking, punching, and hanging onto the legs of the parent. The main message was that they did not want to go where the parent was going. The parent was trying very hard to speak in a quiet voice, trying to calm the toddler down. Suddenly they turned and exasperatedly shouted, "Fine, stay here." In years past, before the arrival of our 10-year-old, I would have thought, oh dear, how terrible. Or perhaps the old favorite, what a terrible parent. What terrible parenting. I may have even said something to my partner, Jamie, and we would have shared a snicker, a laugh, or perhaps even shared a story about the incident later with our friends, complete with a description of how we would have aced this particular parenting challenge. However, that has not went through my mind. As I mentioned, parenting changed my life. Instead, I looked straight at the parent in the midst of the struggle. They looked back at me with embarrassed eyes. Without lowering my gaze, I gave my best, I understand face, furrowed my brow in affirmation, and nodded as if to say, you're doing fine, hang in there. Parenting is hard. Phrases like this were given freely and without prompting by many people in our general vicinity during this process of having our child. And we decided to have ours through adoption, eventually fostering to adopt. I also tell you that the awkward, intensely personal questions asked to traditionally expectant parents by any and all people one comes across, relatives or complete strangers, are not avoided by foster parents to be. We endure an entirely different set of inappropriate questions, of which I will not repeat. Luckily, they become humorous, but initially they're quite shocking. I got a bit off track there. My intent was to put myself into the context of today as I present alongside Tom and Bruce. I am the most recently newly minted parent. You may be interested to know more about becoming a foster or adoptive parent and what it was like for me. I'd be happy to talk with any of you further about it in depth. There are certainly differences from having a child biologically. For instance, instead of trying, we filled out paperwork. The trimesters of fostering a child include the application process, the waiting, the home study, the waiting, the approval process, followed by more waiting, and more specifically about the timing. While we were not adhering to a 9-month calendar, ours took about 3 years. We knew approximately when we would get the call, but it still came as a surprise just the same. Aside from these obvious differences, I do not believe that becoming a parent the way we did, fostering, is all that different to those who became parents the old-fashioned way. And I say this knowing that there are so many other paths too, filled with their own forms of struggles, joys, and paperwork. However, both as a foster parent and a new parent, I have taken quite a few parenting classes, some mandated, read books, trod the web, queued up quite a few parenting podcasts as well. One thing that I've been told is everyone who's having children should take these classes. When I hear this, and I have heard it more than once, I quietly acknowledge that I have heard what they have said and I move on. as it's not my place to decide. Not that I entirely disagree. I have found some of it helpful, some of it worthless, and some of it priceless. I thought I could take this opportunity to capture my new parent focus and enthusiasm by giving myself a few reminders to return to later. And I hope they're useful to you as well. After all, I have most likely spent more hours in parenting classes than you. No, number one, do not gamify your parenting. There are no points, no levels, no achievement trophies. There are no winners and losers. If there ever seem to be winners and losers, everyone has lost. Number two, other parents will parent your kiddos. This is okay. Thank them. This is the village. Embrace the village. Number three, it is never about you unless you make it about you. And even then, it's not about you. Even angry rants describing you in detail, including your name and a description of you, are not about you. Number four, you will not always be liked by your child. It is not a measure of you being a good parent or not. Likewise, neither is being disliked by your child. This is one of the curses of being a parent. And number five, your best is good enough at the time. Sure, you can always do better, but as long as you do your best at the time and prepare to apologize when necessary, it will be enough. If you need to improve, you can do so afterward. However, it is too easy to say, I'm not good enough and leave it at that. You are good enough and you can always do better. Finally, you will notice I did not use the terms father or dad, as that was intentional for a few reasons. As a foster and adoptive parent, one is referred to generally by one's first name. So I'm called Justin quite a bit, and with many different inflections in different situations. I have never been called dad or father directly, and I have made peace with it. It's not up to me, especially from a kiddo who has had many parental and mentorial figures in their life. And I do not mean and it does not mean they love me any less, nor I them. So I identify as a parent. And with all the other forms families can take, I can tell you that in our family, I do not conform to the fatherly role any more than Jamie conforms to the motherly role. We both do both, including different bits across the roles boundaries, each making us parents and partners of an outstanding 10-year-old. Oh, and there is truth in those phrases. Parenting is hard. It's the hardest job I've ever had. I was certainly not ready to become a parent, even after all the classes, books, and podcasts. And it did change my life, and I'm sincerely grateful for it.
Good morning. Well, faced with a blank page, I did what many have done before. I searched for quotes, specifically father and daughter quotes. This one caught my eye. It's everywhere online in a search for father-daughter quotes. It is admirable for a man to take his son fishing, but there is a special place in heaven for the father who takes his daughter shopping. Wait, what? Let me read that again. It is admirable for a man to take his son fishing, but there is a special place in heaven for the father who takes his daughter shopping. Why isn't it admirable to take his daughter fishing? This quote did indeed trigger my thoughts on raising a daughter, or any child, however they self-identify in these times, but maybe not in the direction the quote's author, John Senior, intended. I'm sure much is the same as it has been forever, but just as obviously much has changed and is changing before our eyes, all of which makes me consider my role and our relationship more deliberately. For the two of us, it has always started with play. I try not to direct play to traditional gendered spaces, Emerson decides, but sometimes it's new to me play, different from what I remember as a young boy. Who knew, for example, that Barbie can't stand on her own 2 feet? When Emerson was younger, I made 3 5-foot stuffed bears come to life, complete with different voices for each bear: brown bear, chocolate bear, and butterscotch. It was quite a challenge to keep that up after the second hour, never mind the second month. But it was surprisingly rewarding play for me. You'll have to ask Emerson if she got anything out of it. But here's what I hope she got out of it: a love of play, creativity, independent thinking, self-directed activity. I think they're all important in a world that comes at you with its own agenda. As an older parent, my hope is to foster resilience, to raise an emotionally intelligent human who can face challenges, disappointments, and frustrations with balance. Emerson feels for everybody. As a young child, she would melt in sympathetic sobs if another child around her was upset. I love that quality, and I'm pretty sure she'll be able to balance that empathy with strength later in life. Lastly is an appreciation for the natural world, particularly our place in it and our effect on it. No doubt our changing environment will be a major theme in her world. For example, Emerson is pretty well versed in the food chain, so she can make her own informed choices later. She's involved in the full cycle of activities related to beef cattle, turkeys, chickens, pigs, and helps grow vegetables and hopefully fruit if the weather cooperates. And of course, we fish together. Thank you.